Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our summer seafood class. We're going to begin in just a few more minutes. We'll let some folks trickle in. Thank you. Alita, I just want to do a sound check with you before we begin.
What's up, Emily? Could you hear me?
I can hear you, but you're a little bit quiet.
All right, so I
Try
just,
again.
hi, could you hear me now?
Oh, crystal clear. Beautiful.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
It's this little pop-up thing I have on my computer. I have to make sure that it's always there.
Yeah, perfect. You sound perfect. Thank you.
Good. You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Let's begin. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Teaching Kitchen here at York-Presbyterian Hudson Valley Hospital. My name is Chef Emily, and today's class is focused on summer seafood. So I don't know if any of you have had the occasion to go to a clam bake or eat a lobster roll out on the coast somewhere, but definitely when I think of summer, I think of things on the grill and just lots of fresh seafood and light kind of summer fare. So our class today is going to be focused on that. We're going to be making two dishes. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. For those of you who are back for more, welcome back. And as always, it's It's always such an honor and delight to have you all joining me virtually. So I'm so grateful for your attention and time today. So just a brief reminder, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. You may have to set it. So with the webinar feature, there's the option to set it to panelists and attendees. So just make sure that you have that selected in your chat box. We already have the chat box going, so it should be easy just to contribute right into that. But if you're having a hard time kind of figuring that out, just make sure you set it, unless you just want the question to go to me and Alita, then you can just send it to the panelists and the attendees won't see your question. But I always think it's fun to kind of share a little bit. This is a very knowledgeable community when it comes to food. So I always get great ideas from everyone. So it's always nice to be able to share. So just to jump right into our cooking here, we're going to be making a sheet pan clam bake and a summer salmon chowder using a little bit of coconut milk. So I really like these recipes. I hope you will too. I hope you'll bring them into your homes and your yards, and your neighbors and families can enjoy them now that folks are gathering a little bit more safely. Just a brief note on seafood. Why am I talking about seafood? From a health standpoint, fish and seafood, lots and lots of lean protein, one of the only food sources of vitamin D, as well as omega-3 fatty acids, particularly high in seafood, but especially high in the cold water fish. That's going to be things like salmon and mackerel and herring, your lake trout, sardines, bluefish. All of those cold water fish are especially high in the omega-3 fatty acids, which we know are so important to both heart health and brain health. So I like to try to ensure in my household that we're eating fish at least 2 to 3 times a week. That's what's recommended by the American Heart Association. And shellfish in particular have been eaten all over the world for centuries. They're very rich in lean protein, healthy fats, and minerals. Regularly eating shellfish may actually help to boost your immunity, aid in weight loss, and promote brain and heart health. So if that's not reason enough to start enjoying some shellfish, I don't know what is. But most of the fat in shellfish is actually from those omega-3 fatty acids. So again, high nutrient density there. And they're particularly rich in minerals like iron and zinc, magnesium, and vitamin B12, which is a little bit hard to find if maybe you don't eat meat, but you eat shellfish. Then certainly this is a great source of that B12 vitamin. I see that somebody has a question. It looks like Elizabeth, I see your hand is raised. I don't know if that's on purpose or not, but if it is on purpose, feel free to put your question into the chat box, and then Alita will read us your question. Okay, I hope that makes sense to everybody. Alita, anything before we begin?
No, but Elizabeth says it was a mistake, so.
Oh, okay. All right, well, not to worry then.
Oh, but I
certainly if you, yeah, go ahead, Alita.
I also put the comment about selecting panelists and attendees on the chat box just to reinforce.
Oh, thank you.
Make sure that everybody is using the right, format.
Getting used to our new format. Yes.
It's better though. It's much better. It's much better than the first day we tried.
It is. It definitely is. We're improving.
Yes. 1,000% better, right?
So certainly, yeah. So if you have questions, feel free, and we certainly encourage that. So I'm just picking a little bit of fresh thyme from the garden, because that's going to go into this recipe. I'm going to get a big pot of water boiling back here. It's already almost boiling, and we're going to start actually with the sheet pan clam bake recipe. So if you're following along, you'll want to turn to that page in your packet. If you did not get a packet, then I will send you one after class to make sure that you had one, or you can also always feel free to email me. I'll send it to you. Either way, you will be getting a packet with your feedback survey after the program. All right, so a little bit of fresh thyme is ready here. I'll show you how I picked that, because I'm going to do it again later, because fish and seafood love to be paired with something acidic and something herby. So like thyme, cilantro, oregano, basil, parsley, all of those great herbs, rosemary, dill. Seafood and herbs go really well together. They just pair well together. You can't really go wrong if you're adding an herb to your fish. And then in terms of acid, I like to add lemon. or a little white wine or something like that, something light and fresh and kind of like gives it that little brightness. So we're going to start by boiling our potatoes. So I have these little baby potatoes. They're so cute. And we're going to put these into our pot of boiling water and cook those for about 5 minutes. And then we're going to add the corn in next. So I'll just set the timer here. So for this recipe, it's kind of like 2 parts. One is first boiling stuff in the pot, and then adding it to the sheet pan with our mollusks. Here they are. So shellfish are animals that dwell in water. They have a shell or a shell-like exterior, and they can be divided into 2 groups. Either the crustaceans, which are going to be like these little guys, our shrimp, or the mollusks, like this is our little neck clams. So either those 2 groups. The crustaceans include things like shrimp, crayfish, crab, lobster, and then the clams and scallops and mussels are in the mollusks family, but they're all considered shellfish. Shellfish is actually one of the most common food allergies. So you just want to be careful if you are serving shellfish, who you're serving it to, because you want to make sure that nobody is allergic. So let's start getting our corn ready here. It is corn season. It is upon us. I saw it at the farmer's market this weekend for the first time. Very excited about that. I start by trimming off the top, and there's a part here on the bottom that's kind of the handle. You want to cut right above that. This actually has a specific word. I can't remember what it's called, but I will get it to you sometime. So you cut right above that, kind of trimming the top and the bottom. Now it's going to be easy to take off these layers, right? So you can just kind of peel it off like a jacket. And then you're going to have all of the silk, right? All these little like corn fur. You're going to want to get rid of that, right? Because you don't want that in your food. Some native and indigenous cultures use the corn silks actually for digestion. They will make a tea with it, and it's a really beautiful way to use as much of the food as possible, right? So there's options to use your corn silks if you want. You can even look up on the internet, how to use corn silks, what to do with corn silks. There might be some cool things there for you. So your corn's ready. You're gonna cut it into 3 or 4 pieces. I like to sort of roll the knife through, and then this is the hard part, breaking it into 2, right? Or into, you want to try to get 3 pieces. So I kind of get it started with the knife, and then I break it. Okay. All right. So now we've got that ready. We have about 3 ears of corn there broken up. Just going to rinse my corn off my hands here. And that's going to go into the potatoes. The potatoes, by the way, that are in the water over there, that water is salted. So I didn't mention that, but just make sure you're adding salt to the water. It just helps to kind of flavor everything from the inside. If you are, minding your salt for whatever reason, blood pressure, or you just don't want to have too much of it, you don't have to salt your water. It is not, mandatory for this recipe. Nothing is mandatory in a recipe. I think every recipe is sort of a guide, and then you get to decide, what's right for you and how you want to do it in your home. But our guidance today is to add the salt. So we have the corn going in next. After that, we're going to add, in a small bowl, we're going to combine here's our small bowl, either some butter, or you can use olive oil, again, if you're making a healthier choice. And we're going to combine that with some Old Bay seasoning. So about a tablespoon of that. So let's get this little combination ready. Our white wine, about 1/3 of a cup there. And we're going to mince up some garlic too. So we're just going to make this little mixture. So there's some of it already minced. I'm going to show you in case you haven't seen me mince garlic before. I like to just use the side of my knife, down, pop the skin off, and then we're just going to dice it up. Nice and small. Okay, you can trim the bottom if this one actually doesn't really have that like woody piece at the bottom. Doesn't really have that one. So tuck your fingers, get your garlic in there. Okay. And we're pretty much good with that. Let me grab a little fork actually to just stir that together, because this fork will act as like a tiny whisk to kind of whisk in that Old Bay. All right. So we have our mixture. We have our sheet pan here, and we're gonna get this all together. I'm gonna use 2 sheet pans because I feel like I got maybe a little bit more, more clams and mussels than I bargained for here. But you can use 1 if you're doing a smaller amount. You just want to kind of make sure that everything's spread out in 1 layer. So when you're cleaning clams and mussels, these again are little neck clams. If you are, let's say I got these at Kohl's Market locally, and I gave them a call. I said, "Do you guys have clams in?" They said, "Yes, come on by." We had a great chat about seafood, and then I went on my way. So, but I did ask, "Are these cleaned?" And they said, "Give them a little rinse when you get home." So I gave them a little rinse, and I noticed that they were still a little sandy. So what I like to do with clams and mussels, how I like to clean them, is I soak them in fresh water for about 20 minutes. Then I lift them out of that water, put them in a separate bowl, and then soak them again for 20 minutes. And I'll do that like 2 or 3 times just to really make sure that there's not, maybe these can fit all on 1 sheet pan. Well, that's all right. We have the space. Let's do 2. So I do that 2 or 3 times just to make sure. And you can even see after, well, I don't know if you can see, but after even the 3rd rinse, there's still a little bit of sand on the bottom. So that's just a risk. You have to, occupational risk of seafood, I guess. You just have to enjoy a little bit of grit to it sometimes. But that soaking helps the clams and mussels to kind of purge. And I included in your packets, I included some notes on selecting clams. So never select a clam that's already open, broken, or chipped or damaged in any way. Soak for 20 minutes in fresh water. And then I wrote out that whole process. And then once they've been soaked, you can use a brush to kind of scrub off any additional sand. And then I also shared a little bit about debearding mussels. So a lot of mussels have what's called a beard on them. It's like a clump of hair or fibers that kind of sprout out from the shell. Most of the mussels now that we enjoy are farm raised. So they're already debearded and clean, but the wild mussels can be very sandy and full of debris. So I included more about how to clean those in here as well. Okay, so this part's easy. We're just going to kind of arrange some lemon wedges on here. And the water's boiling over there. Let's see, it's almost been about 5 minutes. So I'm going to add that corn in, let it go for a little bit longer. Just a couple more minutes on that. Okay, we're going to add some chorizo. Now, I wrote about a pound of chorizo. If you're doing a lot, this is 8 ounces. So I'm going to use the 8-ounce container of chorizo. Add as much or as little as you want. If you don't, if you don't like chorizo and you don't want it in your food, then you don't have to add it. This is just, the traditional kind of clam bake thing is to add a little chorizo or something, or at least the clam bakes that I've been to, right? Add a little chorizo in there to get some smokiness. But I will leave that to chef's discretion, up to you. We've got some fresh thyme going on there. And then we're gonna add some red onions. So let me just make a little space for the red onion here. And you just want to, again, go for big kind of chunky pieces here. So top and bottom are trimmed. You can cut it in half to make it a little bit easier to peel that exterior layer off. Anyone ever tried clam bake before? Anyone ever done a clam bake and want to share their experience? Feel free to add it to the chat box. And tell us about what you do in your home for your clam bakes. So I'm going to go ahead and slice this into pieces. Each one's about, ½ an inch, maybe a ¼ inch thick. Tuck in your fingers, make a little tunnel to get that end piece. And you can add about, ½ an onion to each tray. Okay. So very easy, kind of everything goes on the pan. We're going to add some shrimp to this too. Now these are shells on, tails on, right? So the shrimp goes on there too. And you can, of course, peel them before you eat them. I like to cook shrimp with, shells on and tails on. It's a little bit more inconvenient for eating because you have to take everything off. But think about those shells. They are loaded with flavor. So, if you're shelling stuff, you might be losing out on a little bit of the flavor there. All right. So make some space here, and everything's going to go into my oven. It's preheated. Sorry, I have a tower. A tower of containers there. Hopefully now you can see a little bit better. And then this is our butter or olive oil and mixture with a little Old Bay, about a tablespoon there. Some of that white wine, some minced garlic. Save some for the other one here. Okay. And that's going to go in with the corn and potatoes when those are ready. Questions so far about this recipe?
Yes,
So far, so good.
Yes. So a comment from Sue Bonilla. She says that you asked about the corn silk. She says that she used to smoke it like a cigarette. They used to dry it out and smoke it behind the garage. So that's a different way to. That's a different way
Wow,
to
Sue.
use silk, right?
All right. Well, I don't know if we would support that here, but it's certainly a story to know about.
That is, you asked the question, right? So there was also another question about what is Old Bay seasoning. But a couple of people, John M. Indicated that it is in the spice section, and he talked about what the ingredients are.
Here's what it looks like. Thank you, John. Yeah.
Elizabeth wants to know what kind of clams are you using?
Yes. So Elizabeth, I'm using the little neck clams, and I think I wrote that here. Yes, little neck clams. So that's what I'm using today. And they have them on sale right now at Kohl's Market. And as for the Old Bay is kind of a mystery. It says celery salt, spices, including red pepper and black pepper and paprika. So Old Bay is like one of these spice mixtures. You don't actually have to disclose what's in your spice mixtures. So Old Bay is like a timeless, family secret. Nobody really knows what's in it. I have my suspicions. I think there's definitely some paprika in there. But John, it sounds like you have an idea as well of what's in there too. So yeah, that's my take on Old Bay.
All right. So there's a question from Robin. So the shrimp still have the vein in it? Yes,
the shrimp is not peeled or it still has the shell and everything.
And Anne commented that when they're in Cape Cod, sometimes they add lobster to their clam bake or to their bake.
Yum. Yeah, that's really good. I do like lobster. I didn't used to, but now I love it. Definitely.
And Donna says that she's used some chunk of mild sausage plus chunks of hot or spicier sausage instead of the chorizo.
Oh, that's a great idea, Donna. Yeah, I assume, if you also wanted to play around with like trying to make this recipe a little bit leaner too, I'm sure you could play around with some lighter sausages. Thank you, Donna, for sharing that. So I am just draining our potatoes and our corn. You can see it's nice to kind of give it this this boil first. I'm getting my skin treatment here. This is where I go to the spa, is over the kitchen sink. So getting that in there with the corn just adds like that, lets it get nice and juicy before it goes into the oven and gets dried out. You know what I mean? So let's pop some of those on there. Right. And this is all gonna roast, right? So better to do this without gloves, right? Let's put a few more corn over here. Everything just kind of nests in. I added a sprinkle of salt. I'm just going to add a little shine of olive oil over that corn, the corn and potatoes, because they just went straight from the water, and I want them to get a little, nice little browning on them. Okay, let's put these in. There they go. So this is nice. It's kind of like a one pot, thing. You can get you've got your seafood in there. You've got some starch with some veggies. Serve this with a nice salad, and you're on your way to a full meal. Questions or comments? Ready for the next one?
Yes, John wants to know, who will you be enjoying this meal with today? Because it looks like a huge feast.
Well, John, I was hoping you were going to come by. Oh my goodness.
You'll be right there.
Certainly, yeah, great. Certainly, we do share with our colleagues here at the hospital, so I think they may be excited about this one. All right, so on to the next. Oh, and we're gonna top this when it comes out. I've got some fresh chives here. You guys won't let me forget, right? Fresh chives will get sliced up and put on top. Our next recipe is our summer salmon corn chowder or coconut chowder. It has a little corn in it too. And I'm just gonna start by dicing things up. I'm gonna do this in a wok just so you guys can see better. Because when I do it in a soup pot, I'm gonna tip it, you're not gonna see very well. So I'm just gonna do this in my wok, but you can, you don't need to have a wok to do this. You can just do this in your good old fashioned soup pot. And I've got 3 veggies to start with here. So I've got my leeks, which are notoriously sandy. They grow in very sandy environments. Let me see if I can actually even peel off a layer here and show you, right? You can see all the dirt on there. This one too. And that's good. That's normal. I went to the grocery store and the produce manager said, I don't know if you're gonna want the leeks. They're really dirty. I was like, that's what they're supposed to be like. They grow in a muddy, sandy environment. So I'm fine with dirty leeks. As long as you know how to clean them properly, you're good to go. So I'm gonna start by making that tunnel, cutting this in half. I'm gonna fill my bowl here with some cold water. So apologies for the background noise. And then here you're just gonna wanna slice, nice thin slices. Again, tucking your fingers. You want them to be about a 1/4 inch thick. Now, I love to use leeks for this because they add that beautiful, really like creamy, almost creamy texture. And they're a little bit sweeter than onions in my opinion. But if you had onions and you had everything else to make this recipe and you thought, oh my God, I really don't want to go to the store and buy leeks. It's the only thing I don't have. Use your onions. That's fine. Absolutely fine to use your onions. Questions or comments?
So yes, there's a question about, the oven degree. Based on your recipe, it says 400 degrees, right?
Correct.
And then it says how long? Yeah, it says 400 on the recipe. No, yeah, it says 400 on there.
Good. Yep,
and then so it says how long? And for how long? It says 15 minutes on there. About
15 minutes, exactly. About 15 minutes. And in fact, that's a good reminder. We could time it, but it's been going for about 3 to 4. 15 minutes. Basically, you want the shellfish to open up, and you want the shrimp to kind of be opaque in color. So that's one of the ways you can really tell if your seafood is ready. Is it's going to go from being translucent to being opaque. So you can't really see through it anymore. So in go the dirty leeks. And we can even start getting our pot ready here. Let's see. I want to make sure I'm keeping on track with this one. Okay, we can even start by getting this warmed up so that it'll be nice and warm when we add our leeks to it. Many of you notice I like to heat the pan up first without anything in it to get it nice and warm. It just helps to kind of coax all the liquid out of the vegetable. So if you add something to a cold pan, it's not really going to sizzle. And I like the slight browning effect is always a nice way to build flavor. It's called the Maillard effect. When you bring any kind of browning to a vegetable or meat or anything like that, it's a chemical reaction that occurs that it's sort of like, it caramelizes. So it brings out the natural sugars. The heat brings out the natural sugars. They caramelize, and the flavor is just like this umami sweet kind of sweet deal that you have as a result. So you see here with the leeks, I'm just kind of breaking them apart, right? Leeks are very layered, so you want to make sure that you get between each layer. Okay, and then we're going to start by sauteing the leeks in a little bit of olive oil, about 3 tablespoons. And you can get those leeks in there right away. The leeks are going to bring down the temperature of the pan immediately, especially because you have water in there too. So just be careful doing that step. You don't want to, you don't want to burn yourself with the oil as it splatters or something like that. All right, so all the sand stayed at the bottom here, so I'm just going to dump that off. And once I learned to clean leeks this way, I never did it any other way, because it's just the most effective way to clean leeks. Got my sink over here. And then we can go ahead and give that a stir while we, get the fennel and the celery ready as well. Oh my gosh, leeks are so lovely. And this time of year, you can find them. You can start to find them as well at farmers markets, fresh from the market. It's like, they're so creamy, they're so good. So here's our celery, next step. So I'm gonna trim the bottom, right? We don't wanna eat that part. We can put that in our compost bucket. Actually, you know what? Let's turn this into a compost bucket. And then you're just gonna same thing here, very thinly sliced. This celery's already been washed. If you've got like brown spots on the outside of your celery or your fennel, you can use a vegetable peeler to peel those away instead of, cutting off big chunks or anything like that. Feel free to do that. That way you save more of the vegetable. So nice thin slices on your celery. You don't have to be too precise. And then at the tops are sometimes a little bit, browned there, right? I'm not going to use those. We'll give those back to yours. Let's add our celery. And I like to store celery in the refrigerator wrapped in tinfoil. Seems to work pretty well. I don't love to use tinfoil because it takes forever to biodegrade, but you can kind of reuse the same piece of tinfoil for your celery for a long time until it starts to tear and stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me introduce you to fennel. Here's our fennel. Just going to cut off the top fronds, and this part's very, very stringy. You can almost see if I can show you this. Like how stringy this is, right? You don't want to eat that. That's too tough. So you can definitely use the fronds, chop them up and use them as a little garnish. Maybe we will today. We're feeling ambitious. We're going to start by cutting this in half. Now this fennel bulb is lovely. It doesn't have any brown spots or anything. So I'm not going to bother to peel it. I'm going to cut it again into quarters. And a lot of folks will actually wedge out. See that core in the middle right there, right? A lot of folks will kind of use the knife at an angle to wedge that out, right? I'll leave that up to you. It's definitely tougher than the rest of the fennel. I like to eat it raw. I like to just kind of chew on it, but it is a little bit tougher than the rest of the fennel. So if you wanted to, so that the fennel is all nice and all this cooks at the same time and everything like that, and nice and tender, you don't have any tough spots of fennel, you can kind of wedge that out if you so desire. So we've got our 2 fennels in there. Our 2 leeks in there, our 1 fennel, couple stalks of celery for about half a cup. Trim that up. And sometimes fennel kind of comes apart on you. I like to try to kind of bunch it together, keep it all together. And then we're going to add a couple other things, some corn, some potatoes. This is another kind of like one pot dish. I really like this one. I'm using coconut milk today, but you could definitely use like half and half. Kind of has the same thickness and consistency as the coconut milk. So if you wanted to use dairy, like a classic chowder, you could. I'm using the coconut because I like the flavor of it. And I kind of like the non-dairy version, just to show folks who have dairy intolerance, how you can make a chowder without dairy. So we're going to kind of work that in there. Let everything soften a bit. And then we're going to add some garlic, some more thyme. You can tell there's definitely a theme here, herbs, some smoked paprika, a little bit of white wine to deglaze all of that. And then we're going to add our vegetable stuff, or you can use chicken stock, some bay leaf, and kind of bring that to a boil. We'll add potatoes, our coconut milk and salmon, and we'll go from there. Okay. So once that's kind of cooked down a little bit, I have our garlic and our smoked paprika ready. You already saw me mince some garlic. We have a little bit more thyme to add here, so I'm going to go ahead and pick some more of that. This is fresh thyme from the garden. Look how beautiful that is. And when you're working with thyme, I always suggest to find the bendy part. There's always a bendy part on the stalk, right? Find the bendy part, hold right below it, pull against it, and then pull your leaves off the top. That's kind of my favorite way to pick thyme. So here's, for example, this is all kind of bendy up here, right? So I'm going to hold right below there, pull against the grain to get all of that off. And then for the rest of the leaves, just do my best. There's a little stem in there, especially the stem from the top. It's kind of tender. I don't really worry too much about that getting in. They have these little devices that help to like strip your herbs. They're just herb stripper or something, like a device that you can use, but I like the good old-fashioned way, using my fingers. I don't need to, you know, when I'm making this or anytime I'm stripping some herbs, I don't need to go looking for the special tool, you know. So again, bendy part, hold below it, pull against it. We're good. Okay. That should be enough time for us. So give this a little chop. So chop up any of the little stemmies that got in there. Give this a stir. We're going to add our garlic and our smoked paprika next. Everything's sort of softening up nicely. This really smells really good. Garlic and smoked paprika are next. And smoked paprika is a very strong, you know, taste. So you don't need much. That's what it looks like. Smoked paprika gives it that nice smoky aroma. We'll add our thyme, our white wine, kind of deglaze the pan, make sure we get up all of that good flavor if there's any kind of brown bits that are sticking. And Alita, I'll check in with you. Any questions or comments?
Yes, there's a question. This has to do with the clam bake. Can you grill the clam bake?
Interesting. I don't know. I suppose you could if you just like took the whole sheet pan and put it on the grill. I suppose you could. I've never tried. I don't see why not though, because everything is cooked except for the onion. So that would be the only thing that I'm not sure about. Interesting. Let me know how it comes out. I'll come over to your house for that one.
There you go. And then it says, do you include the bendy part on the thyme along with the strip leaves into your dish?
Yeah, I don't really mind. I mean, I try not to, you know, I try to, you know, make sure I get as much of the leaves off the stem at the top as I possibly can. But sometimes a little bit makes its way in there. That's okay. That's okay too.
So Valerie also states that she puts the sprigs of thyme in the pot and the leaves fall off. So then she just plucks them out.
Yeah, there you go. See, that's the way to do it too. Thank you. So, wow, these smell really good. I'm going to turn this and just to give it another minute or so. So what I'm noticing here is that my clams have popped open, my mussels are popping open, my shrimp is nice and pink. So that's good. I added my vegetable stock in here. I'm going to add a bay leaf. You can use fresh or dried. I always like the fresh bay leaves. They have that nice, they just have a really nice flavor. But up to you, fresh or dried bay leaf, whatever you prefer. We're going to add some sliced potatoes. I sliced these ahead of time because I didn't think you wanted to watch me slice potatoes for 5 minutes. So here are the sliced potatoes going in. I will show you how I did it though. It is important that they be rather thin because we want them to cook, you know, fairly quickly on this. So in they go in our hot broth with all of our other beautiful vegetables. And I just want to show you, I use the little potatoes, small and sweet. These are purple ones. And you can just go ahead and slice them up. So tuck your fingers, hold that potato steady. It's hard because they're going to want to roll away from you, right? And then slice into thin slices. And you can practice that rocking motion with your knife if you want to. Just want to show you how beautiful these purple potatoes are. They just like are amazing. How sweet and pretty, right? This is me, you know, at the before class and then at the end of class. that's how I start to feel. All right, so we're gonna get all those in, stir them up. I think I've been spending too much time with my little niece and cousins. I think I've gotten sillier. Kids will do that. They bring the silly out of you. It's a beautiful thing. All right, we'll let that simmer, and then we're gonna add our fish, our corn, and our coconut. Let's just check on time quickly here. Okay, we're good. That's only gonna take about 5 more minutes. All right, so, oh my gosh, this is heavy, but it looks good. How many of you also close the oven using your feet? Not the best habit, but here we are. Right, so that's it. Everything is open. Any clams or mussels that did not open, right? Those are not gonna get eaten. You will get rid of those because that means they're no good. So out you come. Okay, there's number 2. Woo. Gosh, that did make a lot. And then I'm just gonna turn the oven off since we're done with that. Let it cool down, invite all your friends, and you've got yourself a clam bake. All right, so it's a fairly easy recipe. It's nice because it's like in the oven. You can kind of set it and forget it. You just boil those potatoes and corn, then everything gets mixed together. I like kind of having those thick lemon wedges on there because you can grab them and squeeze them over and add a little lemon to that, which is really nice too. Questions or comments? Alita, how's everybody doing?
Oh, sorry, I didn't press the button. It says,
That's all right.
What is cooking stock?
Oh, I think I wrote vegetable. Did I write cooking stock or vegetable stock?
Maybe you said that. I don't know.
Maybe I said cooking stock. What I meant to say was vegetable stock. Oh, maybe you're looking at the box. It says vegetable cooking stock, right? So any kind of like vegetable broth, I added 3 cups. You could probably add 4. It's not a big deal either way. But any kind of vegetable broth or chicken broth for this recipe is fine.
Yeah, and Judy wants to know, could you use canned salmon, I guess, for the one you're doing now?
Ooh, Judy, that's a really interesting question. I have never made this before with canned salmon, so I'm not sure. I think you probably could. You know, canned salmon is already cooked, so it's not going to have the same flavor, but it could be interesting. Could be interesting. It's certainly not going to harm you. You just might not have exactly the same kind of results as we're getting here. Other questions or comments?
Elizabeth says she loves this recipe because she does not have to open the clams, which is a challenge when she eats them raw.
Yeah.
Donna says, don't forget the chives.
Thank you, Donna. Yes, the chives. I almost did. The chives are going to go on top there. Thank you, Donna.
Elizabeth says that she's going to make this clam bake as soon as she can buy the clams.
Woohoo! Yeah, they're on sale at Kohl's Market. They didn't even pay me to say that. So here's our fish. I want to show you how to take the skin off. So I find the thinnest part of the fish, and I'm going to create a handle. I'm using a very bendy knife. This is very useful. It's called a fillet knife or a boning knife, either one. You can find it. And I'm going to trim, but don't cut all the way through to the skin. I'm going to go down, kind of like I'm creating like a scoring it, right? And then I'm going to go under. So now I have, right, I went down. I have this kind of flap here. I can now dig my hand into that flap, send the knife under, and you want to try to get the knife as parallel to the cutting board as you can, right? And this is where it's helpful to have that bendy blade because you can really go kind of flush with the cutting board and cut that skin off, right? So you get a nice clean piece, no skin. All right, and then if you want to try to save any of that extra part here on the edge, you can kind of go the other way, trim that away, right? So you can try to save as much as possible. So that's how you take the skin off. Usually, you know, at a fish place, they'll charge you extra. I'm just going to dice this up into smaller pieces. They'll charge you extra for the labor, right? So if you are able to skin things yourself and kind of cut them up yourself, you're going to end up finding that your fish is less expensive. You can also use frozen fish for this. So feel free to do that and just thaw it out before you need it. So now we've got everything kind of chunked up. Okay. We're going to add this in with our coconut milk and our corn, and it's just going to go in for about 2 to 5 minutes more. coconut milk is here. I'm using full fat. You can use, a light coconut milk if you prefer to use that. And it's a little bit healthier if you use the light one, right? Less saturated fat. Here's our corn right off the cob. Toss that in there. And we can get rid of the fishy stuff. We're good to go. Give this a stir. Make sure all that coconut milk gets in there. Oh my goodness, this smells so good. Wow. And you just want to cook this again until your salmon, or you could use Arctic char or steelhead, those are great options too, is cooked. You can use a whitefish for this also if you like cod or halibut, any kind of fish that you enjoy. And we're just going to let that kind of simmer together. Did I add salt to this yet? I don't think I added salt to this yet. I'm going to add a little pinch of salt, about a teaspoon or so. Questions or comments? Let's get those chives ready.
There was a question about substituting salmon, but you already responded to that. So like cod.
Oh yeah, perfect. Mm-hmm. Yep. So I've made this with whitefish before. I've also made it with the pinkfish family. So either one is good. I'm going to flip this over because it has salmon on it. I want to make sure that I'm maintaining my workspace is no cross contamination there. Then you're going to get your chives, kind of bunch those up into a little bundle of hay, right? So try to get those tied up. And then we're just going to do our nice little chive slice. And that'll go over the sheet cake. So both of these recipes are fairly easy. The chowder can be served warm or cold. If you want to have like a chilled chowder, that's fine too. It's actually really good chilled as well. The only thing is, don't have it straight out of the refrigerator, right? Because the coconut milk has that saturated fat in it, and it's going to like solidify a little bit. So you just want to make sure that you're having it kind of like, more room temperature than cold. All right. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, there's a question about the flavor that the fennel imparts. Is it kind of licorice flavoring?
Oh, fantastic question. So fennel definitely, when it's eaten raw, has a very strong kind of licorice taste. But when you cook it, it really mellows out a lot. If you're, really don't like that kind of fennel taste and you just are a little leery of that, you can leave the fennel out. You don't need it for this recipe. You can just make it with the leeks and the celery, and that would be fine too. Maybe put a little bit less of the vegetable broth, like half a cup less, but you can certainly leave it out if you don't like it. Anything else?
That's it for now.
All right. So I'm just chopping up these little fennel fronds. You can also throw on some tarragon on this, which is really good. A little bit of fresh tarragon, which also has a little bit of that licorice taste. It would probably be good with chives too, if you wanted, or a little parsley. And turn this down. There we go. All right, and you're done. Your chowder is ready. Don't forget to take your bay leaf out before you serve. You don't want anyone biting down on that bay leaf. And you just want to gently kind of simmer everything together. The potatoes should be cooked through. The fish should be opaque. The leeks and the corn and the fennel, everything should kind of be softened. Wow, that smells good. All right, everybody. Well, our time is up. I'm going to bring this sheet pan over to you once more so you can all drool all over your computers. I know I am a cruel chef, right? But I just want you guys to get a sense of what a beautiful summertime feast this is, right? Hi, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining today. Any final questions or comments?
No, just thank you. Lots of thank yous. Yep.
Thanks so much, everyone. And there's lots of information in here. We didn't really dig into it too much, but there's lots of information in here in your packets about how much seafood we should be eating, fish and omega-3s, kind of breaking down that information for you a little bit more, more about thawing and cooking fish if you're working from frozen fish. Frozen fish is great. There's no reason not to use it. I know a lot of people think fresher is better, but not always true with frozen fish. So feel free to use frozen fish as well. A little bit about choosing fresh fish as well as how to clean those clams and mussels. And of course, I always refer folks to seafoodwatch.org if they want to learn more about what fish and seafood is sustainable in your community. So you can learn a little more about that and be an empowered and informed consumer. Thanks, everyone. I hope to see you again soon. We have another class on Thursday on nutrient density. I'm particularly excited about this class. I'm excited about all my classes, but nutrient density is a really interesting subject to me because, I get a lot of questions of, are carrots better raw or cooked? And in this class, I'm going to kind of break everything down. And we're going to, of course, make a really nice kind of nutrient dense bowl. So thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you, Alita, for moderating.
Could you show the soup? They want to see the soup.
Oh, they want to see the soup. Oh, all right. I'll see if I can tip it up. I thought you could see it on the camera there from where you are, but see if I can bring it over without spilling it all over the counter. Okay, there you go. Yep. All right.
Beautiful. Thanks, everyone.
And again, I got this clams and shellfish from Cole's Market. The salmon came from Stop and Shop, or no, ShopRite. I can't remember which one of those, but you can certainly find, you can find good salmon now. So go ahead and see what you can do with that recipe. Good luck, everyone. Thanks again.